Hey, everybody, we made it. What a day. What an amazing day. And I have the honor and also solemn duty to be the last talk of the day. Hopefully you've got just enough energy left to make it through this talk and over to drinks or your plane or whatever. I do want to call out Amanda from White Coat. Thank you very much. I've been really leveraging these closed captions. The cool thing, by the way, for future leading edge speakers, White Coat, it's called White Coat because they mostly do medical conferences. So if you are speaking, you can say words like amygdala and esophagus, and they will spell it correctly. Yeah, there you go. I may throw in a couple other medical terms in there somewhere just to test. They are also really snarky, which I really like about that. All right, so I'm here to talk about that director to CTO path that hopefully we're all on because we're at Leading Edge. How many of us are CTOs in the room? Okay. How many of you are VPs? Okay. And then is everybody else director? Okay. Yeah. All right. So we're all on this different parts on this path. Before I begin this talk, though, I have to give some caveats. So if you ask any one of us who are CTOs in the room, what was our path from director to CTO, we'll all tell you a different story. It's going to depend a lot on what industry you're in, whether you're in a private company or a public company, whether you're VC funded, whether you're self-funded, size of the company, all these things change that. So there is no one path. But what I'm going to attempt to do is give a bit of an path and talk about the things that are needed in senior engineering leadership, which tend to bucket into these different roles, but these are covered in those roles, which means that you will, on your way to CTO, have to pick up all these skills. So another thing too, yeah, I mean, so I've worked at IBM, I've worked at Microsoft, so really big companies. You heard I was VP at Spotify. I've also been in 3-person startups. So I've kind of seen the gamut, and I'll try and incorporate that as we go. So let's talk about what is the path and what are these responsibilities of the different roles. So as a director, which for the purposes of this talk, I'm assuming you're managing managers. That was the original name for Leading Edge, was managing managers. For the purpose of this talk. You've got a team-wide focus. You work close to the work. You were maybe an IC not that long ago, maybe an engineering manager definitely more recently. So you're very still close to the work. You're managing a team, could be 20, 30, 40, 50. I at one point was managing 80 people as a director, but it's not like 100 or 200 or that size team. You're still very close to executing. You're thinking more near term. You're thinking about this quarter's goals, next quarter's goals, maybe out to the end of the year, but probably not too much further than that because you're aligning to your manager's playbook and your manager's goals. And when I say you're narrowly technical, what I mean is you're responsible for a set of engineering disciplines, but not a very wide set compared to some of these other roles. So if you came in as a back-end engineer, maybe you're managing the server team, or maybe you've got server and maybe some test, maybe some front end, but you're not managing usually lots and lots of different roles. You move into the VP role. You're usually considered part, in most companies, certainly smaller companies, you're considered part of the extended senior leadership team, which means you have access to a lot more information. You're part of the strategy discussion sometimes. As you've heard from some of the other speakers, you're now also kind of working more across the company. So you're working with peers that are maybe in functions that you're not working with day to day as much, because you're also tending to work on kind of cross-company projects. You're now thinking out maybe a year into next year, maybe even the year beyond, because you now have a bigger team. And again, for VP, I'm talking about VPs managing directors who are managing engineering managers. You're now thinking out a little bit further because you now have a team big enough that you can start putting the dominoes in a row and lining them up to execute on things in further years. And now you're also going to be responsible for more technical disciplines. So again, maybe you're now managing the mobile team, or now you're, as VP at Spotify, I ran consumer, which meant I had mobile, server, a bunch of stuff. and a bunch of stuff I'd never done. So I had to learn those skills, or at least be able to represent them. And now we get to the CTO. So as a CTO now, you heard earlier, but if you were in that amazing AMA, they talked about this really well as well, which is you're now kind of a member of the exec team. I spend way more time with the exec team than I do with the engineering team. Certainly, I'm at least half my time is spent working with other people in the exec team. And it's your responsibility as the technical person in the exec team to be paying attention to what's going on in the world, not only in technology, certainly in technology, but also in your industry. So if you're the CTO of a widget manufacturing company, it's your job to know what's going on in the technology in the widget manufacturing industry. You're thinking usually, definitely, 1, 2, 3. Some companies I've been at, the board is asking us for 4 or 5 year plans, and where are we trying to get to in very long term. So you're thinking a lot further out strategically. And you're now responsible for lots of stuff. When I became a CTO, all of a sudden I was managing IT. I'd never managed IT before, and I had to learn, how do you manage IT? How do I represent IT for the company and for the executive team? So as you move into these more and more senior roles, as a director, the way I think about it, as a director, you're kind of really focused into your organization. You're really trying to get the stuff done. You're still close to the work. It's not like you're an EM. You've got a broader perspective, but you're still really focused into your org. As a VP, you're now looking around the company. You kind of raise your head up and you're looking around and seeing what's going on and how can my organization align to company goals, like you've heard about in earlier talks. And as a CTO, now you're looking outside the company. You're not only responsible for the technology team, but you're now also kind of looking out into the broader world. And that's your responsibilities. So that's the context with which we're going to kind of work on the next bit, which is following the path. A secret that some of you have maybe already learned. As you get more senior in your roles, nobody's mentoring you. Your boss is way too busy to help you learn your job. You're just kind of expected to do your job. One of the benefits of us in these senior engineering leadership roles is we have a lot more autonomy, which is awesome. One of the downsides is we're just kind of expected to do the work, and our boss doesn't really have time to train us. And I'll tell you, as a CTO, that's definitely the case. Like, if you aren't ready to do the job, you don't get a lot of time to figure it out. They get somebody else new. So we have to drive our own path to a large part. I will talk about mentoring the path as well, because we're all good managers and we want to mentor the people that work for us. But if it's only pull, if you're expecting your boss to pull you up the path, it's not going to happen. Sorry. You're going to have to do some of the work yourself. So first of all, how do you broaden your focus? Talk to your cross-functional peers. Ashley's workshop this morning talked about building cross-functional relationships. I thought that had excellent strategies on how to build cross-functional peers and understand other functions in the business and learn more about the business of your company. You also heard about how do you grow and your understanding of the business. Anissa's talked about that as well. You should care about your business. So many directors I've met or mentored, they're really focused on like doing the tickets and making sure the goals are hit, but they don't understand the context of the business that they're in. They don't know how their work relates to that business, the larger business. You should be thinking about that, because as you move up, you're expected to know that stuff. You're expected to care about it. Follow the industry. And when I say industry, hopefully we're all following the tech industry stuff because we work in tech and we like it. But again, if you're in the widget manufacturing industry, you should be following the widget blogs. You should be following the widget podcast and the trade press. I work in music, it makes it a lot more fun to follow that trade press, but it's still like, it's an industry just like everything else. And I have to know like what's going on, what are our competitors doing, what are the DSPs we work with doing. And you heard also about participating in broader, in discussions. That great talk earlier today. Sorry, I forgot. We did. There was a great, oh, wait, no, it was Denise. The sheet, the form, how many times did I participate? How many talks was I invited into? Important. It's important stuff. It demonstrates that you care about this stuff. It gives you an opportunity to learn. If you're invited into these things, participate in them. If you see stuff in your team and you want to fix it, hopefully you can fix it. If you see stuff that requires other teams to be involved, go to your boss and say, hey, I see this as an opportunity. Is it okay if I lead an effort to do it? Those cross-team projects, to the projects talk, are important. That's what VPs do, a lot of that stuff. If you're a director and you're looking to move into that next level, being able to work cross-team, really helpful. And just be curious, be interested. Be interested in what's going on at your company, be interested in what's going on at the industry. Thinking further out, extending your strategic thinking. So Kat's talk had great tools for building strategy and aligning strategy for long-term problems versus short-term problems. Directors think about short-term problems. VPs and CTOs think about long-term problems. I am today putting things in place using operational change leadership or management that I don't expect to finish for like 2 or 3 years. I'm planting the seeds. I'm going to tend the garden for the next couple of years. That's what I have to do as a CTO. And I can do that because I've worked to understand the strategy of my organization. If you're in a company, hopefully the leadership team is telling you, this is our strategy, this is our strategy. In fact, they're trying to tell you so much, and a lot of times people aren't paying attention. You should be paying attention. And if you don't understand it, go ask and try and figure it out. And then start thinking, how does my team align to that company strategy? I was at Adobe leading a heterogeneous computing team for like Photoshop and Premiere and stuff. And so super hardcore into how do we make desktop computers process pixels faster? And the company's decided we're web now. We're all about web services. We're all about the cloud. So I could have just kept going, well, we're experts in this. And instead what we started doing is we're all about scheduling to hardware. What if we start including cloud hardware into that scheduling? No one asked us to do it, but I knew this was important, so I made sure we were working on it. And that's how I got from senior engineering manager at Adobe to director, or one of the things I did. We talk about understanding strategy. You have to understand the organization with which you're in. Sorry, that's a very oddly constructed sentence, but you hopefully get the gist, which is the team you're in is a system. Understanding that system and how that system works, and if you need this thing that requires these 3-4 teams to participate, how are you going to line that up? How are you going to make that happen? So with this, starting to think just beyond your team, what do I need to do to put these things in a row? And in order to do that, you kind of have to understand how that system works. So start mapping that out and paying attention to the industry trends. Again, the industry that you're in and how they may impact your company, talking to your manager about it. If you talk to your manager about that stuff, your VP or your CTO, they're gonna be, one, super excited that you care, and two, that's gonna tell them a little bit more that you're thinking beyond just the stuff you're currently responsible for. Again, be curious. The technical breadth thing is interesting because doing nothing, your technical breadth will expand. Like if you get to be promoted, you will now be responsible for more stuff. A failure mode I've seen for both VPs and CTOs is that they come from back end or they come from infrastructure or data or whatever. They get to be that senior leader, and that's all they still care about. All they want to talk about is back end. All they want to talk about is data, and they're responsible for the rest of the organization, but they don't really care about it. And guess what? The organization has figured that out. Right? That you don't really understand what we do, you don't really care what we do. So it's important for you as you take on these new disciplines to understand them, to be able to represent them, to actually have a conversation with somebody that works in your team on something you have no background in, and be able to actually understand their job a little bit, because you're responsible for their, in the end, you're responsible for their development, you're responsible for their career growth. They kind of need to know that you care. If there's disciplines that you are not responsible for, but your peers are, talk to them. get an opportunity to like learn before you're responsible for them. You're managing mobile. You want to know a little bit more about data. Go talk to your peer that's managing data. Ask them, like, how does this stuff work? I'm interested. If there's teams that in your org, and I did this when I needed to learn about IT, I started attending their meetings and just sitting in the back saying nothing and writing down the stuff I didn't understand. Like they talk about things like, hey, we need to do this, we need to do this, and this is on the list. I'm like, I have no idea what those things were. I'd write them down. After the meeting, I'd take somebody on the team out for lunch, or I'd like sit down with them or go look it up on my own and try and understand those things so that next meeting I can say, hey, did this work out for you? I've heard this is a problem. And they'd be like, holy crap, you understand that? Like, well, I read about it 2 minutes ago. But sort of, no, yeah, exactly. Hopefully we all like technology. That's why we work in technology. I will tell you, I would love to do more side projects than I actually have time to do, but I absolutely still make time for them, both work time and weekend time. If there's a cool new technology that you think might be useful for your company, or if there's a technology your teams are already using that you don't know that well, I will go and invent a little side project for myself to go play with it. I'm not trying to be an expert because I never will be. I don't have that kind of time, but I want to be at least familiar with it so that I can have, again, an intelligent conversation about it with somebody who knows a lot more about it. Again, be curious, okay? I think I talked about kind of looking down, looking around, looking out. Another failure mode I see for CTOs, and I've worked for people like this, unfortunately, is that they never kind of figure this stuff out and they still act that you can get promoted to be a CTO acting like a director for a little while, but you can't do it for very long. Because if you're still I'm just solving problems in my org and I don't need to know about the rest of this, or I just know back-end engineering and that's all I care about, and now I'm responsible for all this other stuff, but I'm not paying attention to it. You can get to that level, but you're not gonna stay for very long. You're gonna either end up reporting to, holy crap, a product leader, like, oh, that's the worst. Or you're gonna get replaced by somebody who has already done the job. For those who are, like myself, for those of us who are VPs or CTOs, and you are trying to, like we all wanna bring these folks up. We all wanna bring up all the people in our organization. We wanna be able to replace ourselves someday when we retire or something. There is some very simple things we can do. For those of you who aren't at that level, maybe poke your manager and say, like, maybe you should try this with me. I'd be really interested. First of all, the easiest thing is identifying potential. I just told all the directors and VPs in the room things they could do to like show that they are ready to move beyond just looking down into their org. When one of the people that works for you starts doing that, notice it, pay attention to it, support it, help them, right? Understand the role beyond themselves. Delegate. We had a whole great talk on delegation. And from Neha, sorry, I wrote this down so I don't forget who said what. There's been so many good talks today. Neha's whole structure on delegation was awesome. I have, like most of you, I have so many things on my personal backlog. I have my urgent things and I have my important things, which means the important things never get done, even though I really, really want to do them and I'm going to get to them someday. You know what's really good? Hand that to somebody else. That's a great project to delegate. The stuff you want to do but you can't do, not for maybe ever, give it to somebody else. Another piece is explaining your work. So what we do at the VP and CTO level is pretty much, no one else knows. We're completely opaque from the rest of the organization because I'm spending most of my time with the exec team. So the engineers in my team, they have no idea what I do all day. And even the directors don't know it either. Matt, who's the director who works for me, is here. You can ask him, what does Kevin do all day? He's like, I have no freaking clue. I talk to him once a week. He says, I'm super busy. I go, okay. So explaining what the role is, because there's no good way for people to see the role. And I will try to always explain. This is why I think we need to do this. Here's all the reasons why we need to do it. And this is how I got there. And I'll tell you, now that I've been a CTO for like 8 years, I have a tendency to like go from step A to step E in my head because I pattern match this situation and I've kind of solved this problem before. So when I go and make a point of explaining A, B, C, D, E, one, I often find, oh, I have a whole crapload of success bias around step C, and I'm totally wrong. It doesn't apply to the situation. Even better, at step D, the person you're talking to says, I don't think that works the way you think it works. And then they get to feel really smart because they corrected me, and I get to feel really smart because I didn't go and make a big mistake. So there's a real benefit to that, like making a point of kind of over-explaining because it isn't as obvious. It's obvious to you, it's not obvious that people work for you. Overshare. Again, you heard earlier today, we at this VP and C level, we have exposure to so much information no one else in our team has, just because we're in different meetings with different people. A lot of times you think, what am I allowed to say? And that's what you share. What do you need to know? And I make a very conscious effort to say, I'm going to tell you everything that up to what I know I can't tell you. I'm going to give you way much more information than I think I need to, because I want to give you all the context I have so that when I say something, you at least have a better idea of that. Again, it gets really easy to just get in this, what do you need to know? And I'm just going to tell you that. I always try and invert that, and that helps. I think that helps a lot. And obviously give opportunity. Get that VP who did this great project that has board level visibility. Instead of you present it to the board, let the VP present it to the board. Get that director invited to the senior leadership team strategy offsite to participate and make sure they participate and actually help and contribute to the discussion. And we all give good feedback because we're all great managers. We're all experts at giving feedback all the time, and all the people that work for us feel like they know what we're thinking all the time and how great a job they're doing or not. Nah, like, again, at our level, congratulations, you're in the club, all of you. We are expected to just operate. And it gets really easy because we're not seeing each other's work all day long to kind of forget that feedback bit. So give that feedback. And of course, give support. Help do your best to bring the people up. Thank you. It's been an outstanding day. I'm so glad to finish it. If you have questions, because I don't have office hours because I'm at the end, I'll be at the drinks do, as they say in the UK. Afterwards, or if you have questions, I'm pretty much my name almost everywhere. And then this is also how to reach me. Thank you so much.